There's a new qualification coming shortly to schools, but this one isn't for students, it's for teachers. It's called the Masters in Teaching and Learning, and the government hopes that every new teacher will take it. It could eventually mean that teaching will become a master's level profession. But is this really the best way to improve teaching?
You've got to solve this problem using effective communication skills.
Of course, teachers have always pursued training through continued professional development or existing master's courses. But will the government's plans raise the status of the profession? And why now?
I think there are two answers to that question. One is that there's been a general trend towards increasing the level of qualification of our teachers. We originally had people going to teach training college, and eventually we decided that it should be a graduate-only profession. But I think the spur for this current initiative was the observation that Finland came out top in one of these international league tables, and everybody wanted to know what they were doing right. And so everybody went over to Finland and saw that all their teachers had master's degrees, and therefore there was a bit of policy tourism there.
I think they're also very exercised by research into effective teaching and learning, which says that one of the key characteristics of raising standards in schools and raising standards across the system, an education system, is the quality of teaching and learning and the quality of teachers. So they see the Masters as a lever to lever up standards of teaching in our schools.
Teaching is an incredibly popular and well-respected profession in Finland. In some universities in Finland, it's harder to get into teacher training than it is to get into medical school. The smartest people in the country want to be teachers, and they also screen these people for whether they have good communication skills and the right kinds of motivations for teaching. So they have the best, smartest minds in the planet wanting to be teachers.
We think there's good reason coming out of our experience and the research to say that the MTL, the Masters in Teaching and Learning, is a good response to the challenges that we face in this country. It's important to say we're not looking to fix something here that's broken. We have the best generation, the best trained generation of teachers we've ever had here. This is about finding ways of building on the very good practice, the very good teaching that's already in schools, to help individual teachers to improve their practice even more.
Hartswood School in Hertfordshire provides one model for how the Masters in Teaching and Learning could look. It already provides a Masters in Education for all of its recently qualified teachers. And for its NQTs, it provides development through the General Teaching Council's Teaching and Learning Academy. So let's go inside and find out a bit more. Lucy, you're involved with the Masters in Education that you deliver here. How does that work?
About 2.5 years ago, we were looking at strategies to help us improve the quality of our classroom teaching. We wanted to move teachers away from passive learning to much more independent and active learning. And we were looking at ways that we could support teachers in trying out new things and enable them to be reflective at the same time. So they weren't just trying something and then trying the next thing or the next new thing. They were building on what they were doing and what was working. And we found that the Masters modules have helped us to do that and have helped our teachers to think about what sort of teacher they are and what sort of teacher they would like to be over the coming years.
Tora, with all the work that you do through the Teaching and Learning Academy and with your own Masters in Education, do you think what you do could be a model for the new Masters in Teaching and Learning?
Yes, we believe it can, because it's going to be practically based within the classroom, and we're actually looking at research which is taking place. It will actually form part of what our teachers are doing every day, and they'll be able to become reflective. They'll be able to use that within their studies. So it's not an additional workload, it's them already looking at what they are doing and actually being able to use that for their master's module.
The traditional model was you did your initial teacher training and then you taught for 30 or 40 years. Mm-hmm. We're now talking about something rather different, aren't we?
Yeah, I think that the new structures through the Masters in Teaching and Learning, through the Teacher Learning Academy, through different action research-based models, I think they support a culture where we almost grow our teachers as opposed to producing them. I think we see a career over a long period of time and that you're supported in becoming a professional through that. But it takes time to get to that point.
It's teachers like these that the government has in mind, teachers in the first years of their careers.
It would show that you're still willing to learn, you still want to learn. It's not like you complete your teaching degree and you get the certificate and that's it done. I think that there's a lot more to do.
If you're in a school and you are a newly qualified teacher or you don't have a lot of experience, I think it's really important to look at those experiences and learn from them. So I hope it'll be very applied. I'd also hope that there was time incorporated somehow, if we had to do it, to give us the time to assess what we're learning and to work on whatever assignment had to be written.
I look forward to the fact that we get to focus on a specific topic and we get to see whether it works or not and see how successful it is on the kids.
It might help with the status of teaching, it might help with the quality of lessons that are delivered, but I know there are many teachers who haven't done a Master's in Education and are still fantastic teachers.
Obviously, the more responsibility you get up the school, it would help you with that. So for career development, I think it would be good to do it earlier on. There is always a time issue. I think there's not enough hours in the day for any teacher.
I think the early stages of a teacher's career are the best years in which to offer this opportunity. First of all, it's when teachers need the most structured support, and the MTL will absolutely provide that. We also know from our experience with funding postgraduate professional development at the moment that of the teachers who take up those postgraduate opportunities, around 50% are teachers in their early stages of their career already. So we know that teachers, professionally young teachers if we call them that, do see this as an opportunity and not necessarily as a burden.
I think we're actually beginning to blur the distinction between the PGC and the Masters. We're saying that actually after you've got your first degree, then you'll do a 6-year program of apprenticeship, if you like. So the survival strategies are taught to you in the PGCE. You then do an extended placement in your first couple of years of teaching, and then you have some space for structured reflection on that. Think about the compromises you made. Look at the theory about children's motivation. Are you getting the most out of children? And that space for reflection within the first 5 years of practice, I think, will then set up teachers to be lifelong learners.
Do you think you need to make a note of that, or do you think
But some believe that the first 3 years of a teacher's career are not the right time to begin a master's qualification.
Our view is that actually once you've been teaching about 3 or 4 years, then you're in the position of having sort of really learned the craft of the classroom and having sort of the fundamentals of professional practice under your belt. And that's the sort of time when you really could do with starting to think and reflect about what you're doing and to place your work as a teacher within a wider context. In the first 2 or 3 years, you're really focused on getting through.
The Masters in Teaching and Learning will initially be available to new teachers in the Northwest and in challenging schools. The first teaching will begin in the summer of 2010. There'll be no fees for teachers to pay, and schools will be fully funded for the cost of delivering the Masters in Teaching and Learning.
There is a question there as to whether such intensive spend on a few cohorts is sustainable into the future when the remainder of the profession is being funded through school budgets that are going to be tighter and tighter. And there are issues of equity in there, clearly for teachers, but I think there are also issues of equity for children and young people, because if every teacher does not have access to some form of CPD each year, then actually you may question whether each pupil is getting their entitlement to a teacher who is keeping up to date and improving their practice.
Can you just spell out for us what funding, how long funding is available for, which intakes, and then what will happen?
The MTL is available for newly qualified teachers who are taking up posts in the North West Government Office region during the academic year 2009-10 and the following year. And at the moment, that funding is guaranteed. So teachers who are eligible for the MTL under that rubric will be guaranteed funding. We'll then need to look at what the situation is, both in terms of being able to demonstrate the effectiveness of the MTL, but also the wider context before we know what happens after that.
Every teacher who undertakes the Masters in Teaching and Learning will be supported by a more experienced colleague who will act as their coach. They'll also have the support and guidance of a tutor from a local university.
There's a very clear distinction between being a mentor and being a coach, and I think to lead somebody through a Masters, you need to be a coach and not a mentor. They need somebody to be a critical friend, somebody to ask them the right questions. I think it's an attractive proposal as long as the training and support is there to make sure that person can be an effective help.
We're quite concerned that no one's coerced into taking on that role, and we're also very concerned about the workload involved in the role. So we're looking very carefully at how that role is defined, what's expected, and what support and development will be provided by the HEI to enable the school-based mentor or whichever teacher in the school takes that role on to do so really well. Because the one thing that will catapult this programme more than anything else is poor provision.
But how will the new Masters in Teaching and Learning relate to other Masters qualifications that are already available?
We certainly don't see the MTL as being a replacement for all the other very good Masters level offers that are out there for teachers at the moment. If the Masters in Teaching and Learning has the effect that we certainly expect it will have, that it will improve practice, it will have an impact ultimately on standards, we would see that actually as driving up demand for other Masters level qualifications for teachers. And we don't see the MTL as taking the place of or stealing candidates from other Masters level offerings.
The evidence currently is that there's no evidence that master's degrees make teachers better, but then that's not very surprising because these master's degrees weren't designed to make teachers better. Most of them are assessed through 4,000-word essays. They're an introduction to the scholarship of education. They're a great grounding for doing a PhD. They might not make you any better as a teacher.
From the teacher's perspective, might it not sometimes be better for a teacher to do a master's in their own subject, English or history or whatever? Might not that improve their teaching more than doing a master's in teaching and learning?
It turns out that subject knowledge doesn't make you that much better a teacher. Pedagogical practice, how you use those skills, is much more important. Teachers who know their kids as individuals but don't have a wide range of teaching repertoires to do anything with that data actually do worse than teachers who don't know their children at all. What really matters is that you have a combination of pedagogical skills matched with a subject knowledge, and both of those will be developed in the MTL.
Our view is it would be a mistake to get too caught up on a single solution, which is masters. The solution is this good quality CPD that is effective for teaching and learning? That's the solution. Part of that is the master's qualification.
I hope it's the beginning of genuinely professional CPD. Since the 1988 Education Reform Act gave each school the right to require teachers on the premises for 5 days a year for what were called Baker Days back in the 1980s and are now called Professional Development Days. We've had 100 of them, and I've asked teachers, has what you've done in those 100 days made you better as a teacher? They haven't said it has. They said it's been administration, it's been boring, it's been having people talking at them. What I'm hoping is that out of the MTL, every teacher emerges on a trajectory that launches them onto a career where they continue to improve bit by bit, a bit like Toyota's idea of quality circles, continuous small improvement. The idea that you're constantly working to make yourself just a little bit better. The fact that you can carry on getting better forever, I think, makes teaching into the most wonderfully challenging, frustrating, demanding, and high-status job anybody could ever imagine.
The Schools Department hopes that the new Masters in Teaching and Learning will lead to a step change for the teaching profession. The idea, of course, has come from other countries where the practice of making it a Masters-only profession has raised teachers' status. The question now is whether transplanting it to England will work.